FM, the sound of Lagos.
Mainland 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial. 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial.
Top of the morning to you and yours, and welcome to radio. My name is Sage Babalola, and you're currently listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. The holidays are over, everybody's back to work, although we did not get the luxury of enjoying the holidays, but it's okay. We're glad that you were able to get some rest, and we're hoping that you have all the energy that you need to go through the workload that is waiting for you this week. Again, let's say congratulations, or belated congratulations, to our Muslim brothers and sister for the successful completion of Ramadan. Again, good morning to you. My name is Sage Babalola. This is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM, where we spend time analyzing, discussing, and even scrutinizing some of the reports that have been put forward by the different editors of the papers. I'm not by myself in the studio. As you know, every morning we're joined by Fuhad, Saheed, who gives some sort of analysis or clarity on some of the matters we would be analyzing on the radio this morning. Fuhad, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Sage. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Fuad, would you do post-Ramadan celebration for us and bring jollof rice?
It's not a problem.
All right. Well, good morning again and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so we do have the papers with us already: Vanguard, The Guardian newspaper, The Nation, and New Telegraph. So we'll open to this conversation by looking through the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. The top story, as reported here: Sean rumors, I am strong, Tinubu says on arrival from France. The riders to this: I have rested, I'm refreshed, and I'm ready for tax ahead. Party leaders to meet soon on zoning of offices. A source, well, undisclosed source, I should add. Let's go to page 5 for the body of this particular story. Now, it's here. President-elect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu yesterday returned to Nigeria after a 32-day vacation in 3 countries following conclusion of the 2023 presidential polls, saying he is strong and ready to hit the ground running. He was escorted to the airport by certain political dignitaries. Let's put it as that, because I don't want to go through the long list of those who received him at the airport. What I want us to focus on is his address to the crowd after or upon his arrival. He was asked about his plans for the country, and he says he has been consulting and planning with a view to put together a strong team that could hit the ground running once he assumes office May 29. In the absence, now I'm talking about the zoning now. In the absence of Tinubu and the zoning template, a horde of senators-elect and members-elect from the various zones of the country have been consulting, lobbying, and campaigning to be Senate President and House of Representatives Speaker, among others. Already, there are people who are afraid that the 2015 scenario, when Senator Bukola Saraki emerged as the Senate President instead of Senator Ahmed Lawan, who was the choice of the APC leadership, could reoccur. So the papers have now referenced what happened with Bukola Saraki. I'd like for you to shed more light on that so that we can get perspective as to why there are certain people who are afraid of a recurrence with the Bukola Saraki scenario.
Well, okay. Again, the president-elect came back yesterday.
Yes.
And I think was well received by party leaders. Vice President-elect was there, and of course, the Speaker of the House, Babalola, and other party faithfuls who went to receive him at the airport in Abuja. Now, on the National Assembly politics for the 10th Assembly, the 2015 scenario is still fresh in our minds, and that was when, President Muhammadu Buhari was elected, and somehow did not pay attention to the politics of the National Assembly at that time. The party APC at that time had wanted Senator Ahmed Lawan to be the Senate President. But instead, Bukola Saraki, who was of the PDP expansion at that time, part of the PDP that moved to the APC then to form the APC, decided that, look, he could play the politics of the House, and somehow he, joined with the opposition, made an alliance with them, agreed with them on some certain things, especially on principal positions of the House. And with that, they were able to upstage the decision of the APC, to produce a Senate president in the person of Ahmed Lawan. Ahmed Lawan eventually became Senate president in 2019, when the APC somehow had learned from its mistakes of 2015. So, but I think this time around, the APC understands that the House is a bit different now. You have freshers, a lot of freshers dominating the 10th Assembly. They'll be dominating the 10th Assembly. The opposition also has a sizable number, even though the ruling party still has a majority. But if the opposition works together and a member of the ruling party works with the opposition, he may well emerge as the Senate president against the choice of the party if the party does not pay the politics that comes with the composition of the 10th Assembly. A lot of people feel that the 2016 scenario will not repeat itself because, again, you have an Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is also a master strategist when it comes to politics and the politics of the National Assembly. He was a former senator, so he understands the National Assembly very well. And he's also somebody that a lot of people think has the political understanding. That, look, for you to succeed as a president, you need the National Assembly on your side. And you would not necessarily have to have a rubber stamp assembly, but have an assembly that has the same ideology, the same thinking and focus as you as president. So he's going to get interested. Again, it's going to be one of his major political tests as president-elect. What he's going to do in terms of the composition of the 10th Assembly, principal offices and all of that. Again, zoning is going to come up as a major point of discussion, whether anybody likes it or not.
Right.
The president-elect is from the southwest. The vice president-elect is from the northeast. So you have the northwest, the south-south, and the southeast, north central, or jostling for different principal positions of the House. So it's going to be an interesting one, but a major test, a first major test for the president-elect as he returns to Nigeria after taking 2 days of vacation.
Yes, well, his return is what has been somewhat slowing down that particular process. And now that he's back, like you said, interesting times ahead. Let's see what really comes out, or let's see what strategy they put in place with regards to the position of the Senate presidency. You can get more details on this particular story on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Let's move on now to another headline. We have here 40% pay rise. Varsity workers on war path as federal government over expulsion. We have riders to this story. Federal government's action, recipe for disaster, says SANU. Says we are yet to receive 50 billion naira earned allowances. Varsity workers captured in pay rise, says federal government. Waiting for ASU to conclude negotiation on condition of service. Those are the riders to the story. Now, there are indications that unions in the university system may rise against the federal government for the exclusion of their members in the 40% pay rise for peculiar allowance and arrears. Speaking to Vanguard yesterday, President of the Senior Staff Association of Nigeria Universities, SANU, Comrade Mohammed Ibrahim, has said that, and I quote, "This idea of denying university workers the salary increment is only a recipe for crisis in the education sector, because the government had promised 2 years ago that they were going to review the salaries, putting together a renegotiation committee, and renegotiations never got concluded. There is also the 50 billion naira earned allowances, which they said would be put in the 2023 budget. It has not seen the light of day. There's also the proposal for salary increment, which they made and has also not seen the light of day. However, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige, has said that university lecturers were not excluded in the pay rise, explaining that the delay in paying them was due to the inability of ASU to conclude negotiations with its employers." So, Fuhad, the conversation of the 40% pay rise, it's been going on for a while. Well, as much as it's not really something that would do much for anyone because of the economic realities of the country, but we did say that it was a laudable thing to do to at least help people survive what is to come. But then again, the controversy surrounding this is that lecturers were somewhat exempted. In fact, if I remember correctly, doctors were also exempted from this pay rise, which caused some sort of uproar. Now, the lecturers are now speaking. Why would you exempt us? But the explanation of the federal government is that ASU is yet to conclude negotiations with the federal government on conditions of service. So they want to finish the negotiations, reach a consensus before they are added to the list of those who would enjoy the privilege of the 40% pay rise. Do you agree with this the Senior Staff Association president, who says that the initial exclusion is a recipe for disaster?
I agree with him completely. And again, I think, to a great extent, when issues like this come up, I'm tempted to think that we have to continue to look beyond this present government. It's almost good to say we can't wait for them to just leave so that we can have a breath of fresh air. Because again, you have a Minister of Labour that seems completely distraught about whatever he tries to come up with. There's a salary increment for all civil service servants, a 40% salary increment. And you've implemented others. You decided to leave the medical workers out of it and the lecturers. And basically what you're saying is that, the reason why they're not captured is that they've not fully negotiated the conditions of service. How does that affect salary increment? Have there been any negotiations with the civil service that has ever ended? There are so many things on the table that the government has not even fulfilled when it comes to negotiation with lecturers. This should just be, at least we fulfill this part of increment of salary, and then negotiation continues on other conditions of service. Why do you want to use the 40% rise in salary as a condition for negotiation? And then you deliberately get them. Again, putting down a recipe for a problem, again with ASU. So again, as much as one expects that, normalcy will return, again, like you have just mentioned, what is even there to celebrate a 40% salary increment with the level of inflation that we have in the country, with the reality of subsidy removal that is going to bring the hardship on Nigerians and workers generally? Is it even something that we're supposed to even celebrate to the extent that it will not be used as a base for negotiation with lecturers? So, again, it's unfortunate that we find ourselves in this situation, and again, I'm tempted to say that we can't just wait for this government to pack their baggages and leave us. So that we hopefully get some new set of people who will be more interested about fixing problems and causing problems for Nigeria.
Well, let's hope that the kickback from the lecturers would maybe cause them to reevaluate their decision to exclude them in the first place, and then we might, moving forward, see that they're added, and then they can, of course, increase their salary and also continue with negotiations. Do both things simultaneously. But for now, this is all the information we have about this particular story. Page 8.
Say what I'm even saying is that the salary increment should not be a point of negotiation. Should not be used.
I understand that. Yeah.
You understand? It's just supposed to be, it has happened, it's nothing, we've done this, and then we'll negotiate on other things. But when you now say, we are excluding you because we've not completed, also, are you using that as a point of negotiation?
So if we don't reach a consensus, right, so if we don't reach a consensus, you will not be added. That's the interpretation.
What consensus are you going to reach? Really?
Well, like I said, as more information comes out about this, we'll be sure to provide you with it. Page 8 is where you will find the full story. Now, let's talk about what's going on in Sudan. The story here, Sudan, evacuation of over 2,000 Nigerians begin today. There are riders to this particular story. We do have here, Airpeace seeks federal government's nod to airlift stranded Nigerians. NIDCOM asks Nigerian students to remain on campus. So, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has confirmed plans to evacuate 2,000 Nigerians in the crisis that has hit Sudan this morning. This came on the day that Airpeace has expressed its willingness to evacuate Nigerians stranded in the Horn of Africa country free of charge. So, Fuhad, what's going on in Sudan? I think we spoke about that in a global view, the two military factions who are fighting for power. Apparently, Nigerian students are trapped there. And this takes me back to when the Russia-Ukraine war started, and it was a battle to get the federal government, I really don't want to paint them in a bad light or nothing like that, but it was a struggle to get help for students who were trapped in Ukraine at the time. Now, the federal government has decided to, step into this particular condition to rescue Nigerians that are trapped in Sudan at this time. And in fact, Airpeace has offered to go and airlift them. Although initially the federal government says airlifting might be impossible because the Sudan airspace is currently shut. And their own proposition was that the students trapped there, or the Nigerians trapped in Sudan, would be evacuated by road. So let's just talk to us about what's going on in Sudan, and also what do you think about the response time and also the strategy of the federal government, plus should I say, proposal by Air Peace to go and lift the Nigerians trapped in Sudan at this time.
Okay, well, I think what is happening in Sudan is just two generals that have gone bunkers completely. And when I say bunkers, you have two generals who are fighting a supremacy battle, going to control what is left of Sudan in terms of governance. That's almost a failed state, I must tell you, state. Is the ouster of the former head of state, Omar al-Bashir. So you have these two generals, one controlling the army, the proper army of the country, and the other one controlling the militia for the RSF. Unfortunately, this is what happens when you have the party boys in governance. They are not trained to do that job. And so this is the sad situation of Sudan as we speak. Now, for Nigerian students, I think the first thing is to commend the CEO of AIP, who is always available to help Nigerians out in situations like this. This is not the first time they'll be doing this. I think during the COVID era, he was also available to help Nigerians out of China. During the problems of xenophobia in South Africa, he also made his aircraft available to enlist Nigerians back to Nigeria. So he's always been available to help in situations like this, and I think we have to commend him. He's not the only one that runs the airline of international standards, but I think it's just part of his own corporate social responsibility, and he has always been available to help Nigerians in this situation. Now, in terms of response of the government to move Nigerians out, I've said that, look, I listened to Godfrey Oyema, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I quite understand how difficult it is to move people out of a country that are falling into total anarchy. Because what you have in Sudan now is that it's not just the army and the militia are fighting. You have gangs, you have thugs, you have miscreants also taking over streets, and you have to be careful really, so that you don't fall into the wrong hands and then something bad happens. Again, the airport in Khartoum has been shut. The airspace is restricted because it's highly dangerous. You don't know who could fire a rocket launcher or something to any aircraft. So it's almost difficult now to enlist people out of Sudan until you have the proper clearance between the government and even the militia, because again, the situation has to be properly monitored to know who is controlling what and where in Sudan, so that you are not caught in the middle of a fire or something. So it's a very difficult situation, really. Now, the options of using the border areas, the land opportunities of border nations like Egypt, Kenya, and then Ethiopia, is also a very difficult one, because you have to travel by road for hours to get to these borders. If it's going to be done by bus, again, you have to be careful not to run into the hands of miscreants. Because again, that's the problem when you have a war situation. You don't know who controls what. So it's not just going to be the soldiers, regular soldiers that will fight. You will have miscreants who are going to take opportunity of the situation also to perpetrate all manner of crimes and criminality. So I like the fact that the government is responding, is monitoring the situation. Even the U.S. Has only succeeded in removing as diplomats. The same thing with France, Canada, and all other Western nations. When it comes to citizens of these nationalities, they are still somehow trapped in Sudan, and because of what is going on to also move the nationals out of that country. So it's not just Nigeria that has this problem of safely moving out our people from Sudan. It's a general problem because the war started almost unexpectedly, where you have two generals who just started to the madness at the same time. So I think we have about 2,000 that have been lifted out of Sudan today, according to the government.
Yes.
We'll wait to see how that goes. I think there's a figure of about 5,000 students studying in Sudan. But you know what, say, again, for sake of also telling Nigerians, that is why we say that, look, it is better to judge than to war. That's the sad reality of people who are saying, we should go into a war situation, we should fight and all of that. Until you lose a peaceful atmosphere, you don't know the value. I can tell you that Khartoum has become a battleground. Lives have been lost. People are dying. People are suffering needlessly. They are trapped in the chaos as we speak. God knows what will be happening to women in Sudan as we speak now, because they've become vulnerable. Life has been cut out. Internet services have been restricted. banks are not even working. There's no, you can't even get hold of your cash. So we should continue to preach peace in every situation we find ourselves as a country.
Right. Well, 2,000 would actually be evacuated today, and hopefully they're able to evacuate more with the help of the CEO Airpeace, who has offered his airplane to airlift some of the Nigerians that are trapped in Sudan. Well, thank you very much, Fuhad, for your analysis on that. Page 27 of the Vanguard newspaper has the full details of that particular story. Let's move on now. Electricity. New bill in House of Reps threatens 10 billion naira investment. That is the particular headline. So let's look at this now. There were indications over the weekend that the 10 billion additional investment occasioned by the proposed emergence of Nigeria Electricity Act could become a mirage, due mainly to some anti-investment provisions in the House of Representative Electric Power Sector Reform Act, EPSRA. Now, Fuad, the issue here is that they're being asked to pay a 10% tax. That's for those who would be taking advantage of the electricity sector. The bill by the House, there's a provision in there, and it states that hydroelectric power companies that are operating within a state would pay a 10% tax on the total revenue generated. The proposed 10% tax on the revenues will make small-scale hydroelectric power generation within the state economically viable. So the bill, the electricity bill, has been amended, or they are speaking about certain changes to that electricity bill. Now, the amendment bill imposes significant additional cost on bankrupt electricity markets and the companies operating in the electric sector. The bill is focused on generating revenue for the existing federal government in power, and it has overlooked the unintended consequence and harm that the bill would cause to the power sector. This is a part of the story that I just read out. So that bill, a very great one, by the way, which was supposed to encourage investments that is worth over 10 billion naira for the power sector. But now the House of Reps are pushing for a bill that would mandate those operating in the power sector to pay some sort of tax of 10%. Of course, there's been some, pushback regarding this provision in that particular bill. Many financial experts, especially those in the business aspect of it, believe that this would actually be counterproductive, because when you take 10% away, they would not be able to enjoy profit maximization at the end of the day, and they believe the federal government is more interested in the revenue that they will get from that tax rather than the tax of improving the electricity condition of Nigeria. Fuad, yesterday yourself and Sandra had an extensive conversation about taxation. There are about 30 taxes that are being paid. That's aside the levy, those who are unreceipted levies that are being collected and what have you, with a corporate tax of about 30%, one of the highest in the world. And now we're seeing a call for a 10% tax for an electricity sector, as stated in the paper, that is standing on one leg. Fuad, what do you think?
He's standing on no legs. He's just hanging.
I mean, what kind? I say one leg, you say no leg.
You know, if you got one leg, you can even use it to support it. But this one is just hanging. He's just hanging on the grace of God, really. Hanging there, So again, I've tried to even read through that bill to see the rationale and to try to rationalize it and see the meaning that I can make of it, and nothing came to mind, trying to read through that entire proposal in that bill. But again, I think change, because if you even reading through the report, you understand that there's so much confusion in the power sector. It's a confused sector, one of the most confusing sectors, and that's the reason why, despite all of the reforms that we've had in the power sector, as a country, we are still hovering between 4,000 to 5,000 megawatts. I think there's even a drop to about 3,500 megawatts, as reported yesterday in the papers. And that tells you the level of confusion we have in the power sector. Again, during the manifesto of the different political parties, one of the manifestos I really have to sit down to read properly was the renewed hope manifesto of the APC and what they were planning to do with the power sector. I think ultimately, for us to get away from this current confusion in the power sector, we need to chart a different path. We need to move away from this over-centralization of the national grid. The transmission companies, the GENCOs and the DISCOs, whatever arrangement we have now is not working. And I think we need to look at other options. Again, like I said in the morning, we would have to wait to see what the new government would come up with. We can't wait, really. We can't wait to just see what's going to come. Because again, how do you explain that you are talking about a 10 billion naira investment, and then on another hand, there's a proposal for 10% payment on tax on, an already stifled, sector
Electricity
that is
sector.
hanging on no leg, really. So let's just hope that again we get a government that would come up with the right solutions to our energy problems in the country. We can't wait, really, because like we discussed yesterday, we're going to fire up our industries and factories again. As a matter of urgency, we need to fix our power problems.
Definitely, we need to. Their primary fear is actually that this tax is going to scare away foreign direct investment, and those or private organizations who are interested in the power sector, they feel like this taxes like this one would scare them away. I mean, I do remember there was a time we were proposing, tax. There's a word for it where you don't have to pay tax.
There's a bill for. There's about 17 bills proposing different taxes again in the assembly as we speak.
Right.
I think that this is even one of them.
Yes, some foreign direct investors are granted some sort of tax relief. I think that's a technique that some countries use when they want investors from outside the country. But in our case, we were kidnapped when he could no longer withstand the torture in captivity. Temidayo Elewa, his co-abductee, went to 2 million.
I think about 15 million.
Yes.
They eventually reduced it to 12 million.
It's 12 and then 2 million. Yes,
it was too late for the man because he had some ailments.
Exactly. Yeah. It was too late. It's so ridiculous that kidnappers are negotiating as if they're trying to buy an object from the market. They're negotiating human life, 60, then 12, then 2 million. Well, our heart goes out to his family though, and we hope that the co-abductee Temidayo is well. She's been taken to the hospital for checkups and what have you. But Fuhad, we can use this as some sort of poster boy for the story of for the incidents of kidnapping in the country. In fact, many have said that since the election period, we have seen the resurgence of insecurity. In fact, it's reported in another paper that I have here with me. When we get there, we would open it up. But don't you think that is rather disturbing that once it's time for election, insecurity is slightly minimized, but right after the elections, we see a resurgence of kidnapping, banditry, and what have you?
Well, again, we've not really had any data to suggest or to explain why, when there are elections in the country, cases of insecurity drops drastically. We have not really gotten any explanation to why that happens. It's not just even in the north. Even when elections were held in the south, IPOP troubles and all of that went down drastically. So, but like I said, there have not really been any real explanations to why that happened during the election period. Even in the twilight of Boko Haram and all of that, in 2016, the elections were held in Borno State without any incident. So, but until we get, maybe an empirical evidence or explanation to why that happened, I just want to leave that aside. You know what, Take? Yesterday, when the president-elect returned to the country, that's Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yes.
And he was waving at party supporters. I the merrymaking, I saw the happiness in the faces of his supporters. Something kept coming to my mind, and that was, should I pity this man or envy him? Because I'm looking at the number of problems he's coming to inherit.
Right.
I saw him looking well pumped up, looking fresh, with so much energy. He was going kisses at his supporters. Everybody looked very happy. But in my mind, I was looking at the whole thing and like, really? Is he actually aware of the number of troubles he's coming to carry?
Economic problems, policies, we have the financial, we have insecurity, structural decay. It's a lot of things to do.
It's a lot, really. And although in his statement he said he's going to be working with a team of experts and all of that, he was ready to hit the ground running and all of that. But again, I'm a bit cautious. I'm a bit cautious about optimism about his ability to handle all of these issues, because this is not the first time we've gotten promises from people elected who have promised us a whole lot to come and fix our problems, for us to find that the things get worse. I remember in 2016 when the President Muhammadu Buhari was elected, and all of the promises he made, it was almost the same atmosphere of belief and trust that we are going to be seeing something completely different. What do we have now? It has gotten worse. Insecurity has gotten worse. The economy is in shambles. Infrastructure has maybe only improved with about 20%. We still have a lot of infrastructure decay. all of the oil sector is in complete chaos as we speak. One has thought that by now, the subsidy issue would have been fixed. Number of refineries would have been fixed. Would have had a number of modern refineries working to the point that we're able to refine and solve our problems locally.
Right.
But all of these issues of 8 years are still there. And now we have a president-elect who is also promising help with everything.
Fuhad.
And I said that, look, I looked at the whole thing and I said that, this man is coming to inherit a lot of problems.
Right. Well, let's move away from that. Well, many people say that should I say unemployment rather is one of the greatest catalysts or contributors to insecurity in the country. And I think unemployment rate has moved from about 35 to about 44%. And many are afraid that with increasing statistics for unemployment rates, there might be a corresponding increase in the level of insecurity that we would see. So maybe if they are proactive in dealing with the unemployment issue, we might see a a reduction in the level of insecurity and kidnapping that we're seeing in the country.
How do we solve sorry please, how do we solve our unemployment problem?
Production.
How do we produce? Let's even start. Let's just
we are not starting. Fuhad. Let's move. We still have papers to review. If they can, maybe entrepreneurship, really, that's what they can do. But let's move from that.
Any entrepreneur at this time, we should commend them.
Yeah,
if you have anybody running a business in Nigeria now, paying salaries and still surviving,
yes,
I think we should commend people like that.
Yeah.
It must have been as a result of their resolution to still remain in business, not because there's any support coming from government.
All right, well, let's move on. This is the last headline for this morning from the Vanguard newspaper. Court quashes Nigeria Air's hope of flying. Asks NCAA to halt issuance of AOC. Now, hopes of Nigerians witnessing the takeoff of the new national carrier Nigeria Air before the end of this administration remains a far cry. This is because a federal high court sitting in Lagos have asked the Director General, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, to halt the issuance of air operator certificate to the proposed carrier. If you remember, the federal government was dragged to court with this national air conversation because of the Ethiopia Air, should I say, collaboration of some kind. They just don't think that this is an alliance, a business alliance that would be significantly beneficial to Nigeria, where it would seem that the court has aligned themselves with the opinion of those in the sector, those who took the case to court, and then they've been asked to hold on with the issuance of the AOC. They're asking the NCCA to halt the issuance of AOC. Fuhad, in like a minute, let's just talk about this very briefly. I know how you feel about Ethiopia's involvement in this national carrier, and I know that you are not very, should I say, encouraged, or you don't believe that this would work before the end of this administration. So if you can, in a minute, just talk about this briefly so we move to another paper.
No, well, the courts have spoken, so I think as a country governed by law, I'd expect the government to respect the verdict of the court.
Yeah.
And if the AOC is not given to them, there's no way the airline can take off. Again, I keep asking the question: why are we so desperate to start this project, this Nigeria Air project? Are there vested interests who are just desperate to allow us to have this national carrier?
The economic
again, a national carrier, a national carrier that is not going to go beyond its name, because again, the operation is domiciled in the hands of a foreign operator. So you ask yourself, what manner of national carrier is that? You have a national carrier in name, but in operations and proper principle, it is being run by Ethiopia Airlines. I don't know why we're this desperate, and I like that the court have spoken. I like the fact that stakeholders in the sector are also taking up the issue, especially local airline operators, who think it's going to be detrimental to their business. So we have to respect the court and expect the government to do that.
I'm sure that this is not going to be the end of it. I'm quite certain this will not be the end of it. So with more information, we'll be able to analyze further. Well, that's it for Vanguard newspaper. We're moving now to the Guardian newspaper. Again, trends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM is what you're currently listening to. Facebook, YouTube, we are streaming on those social media platforms. Mainland FM 98.3. So go on there so you can participate in the conversation that is happening right now. So the Guardian newspaper, top story: Nigerians spend 2.04 trillion naira yearly on malaria prevention treatment. That is the top story. It is World Malaria Day today, by the way. Forgive me for forgetting to announce that. So yes, it's World Malaria Day today, so that's why there's a conversation about this. Right as to this, 55% of recurrent health budget goes to malaria care. epidemic affects 51 million Nigerians, 207,000 deaths a year. Now, despite a series of intervention programs against the malaria epidemic in recent times, Nigeria is apparently not winning the war against the deadly scourge, with an estimated sum of 2.04 trillion naira still routinely spent on treatment yearly. The conservative estimate of malaria cost, which is a far cry from the $1.1 billion estimated by the World Health Organization, still excludes out-of-pocket cost of self-medication and prevention measures by Nigerian household. Sub-Saharan Africa has always been quite susceptible to malaria. I think the high number or the higher percentage of deaths that are recorded as a result of malaria is actually in Africa. So the amount of money that we spend annually, 2.04 trillion naira at this time. But Fuhad, I mean, we had a conversation about the R21 vaccine that has been developed. Yeah, Ghana has jumped on that train. Nigeria has jumped on that particular train. So do you think that we can be somewhat optimistic looking forward, that we might not necessarily have to spend this exorbitant amount of money treating malaria if R21 is vetted and deemed safe to use?
Yeah, of course, that's the advantage of having a vaccine. When the vaccine story came up, one of the things I said was...
Yeah, the pharmaceuticals.
The pharmaceutical companies that make a lot of money from malaria tablets. Again, there's a figure to it now that in Nigeria alone, we spend about 2 trillion naira, more than 2 trillion naira annually treating malaria. Those monies actually go to pharmaceutical companies. If you agree with me. But again, ultimately, we have to consider the health of the people. A vaccine is more preventive than, it's not about treatment, it's about prevention. And all of that.
Prevention is cheaper.
Sorry?
Prevention is cheaper than treatment.
It's far cheaper, far more reliable, really.
Yes.
More reliable, really. So, but again, the vaccine thing will still take some process.
Of course.
Even if it is eventually approved and all of that, for it to be available in commercial quantity, that we need, for it to go around, will have to take some years. And one may also be looking at the issue of patents and all of that. But it's a good one, and because it's what malaria did, these figures are important for us to look at. But it's not anything surprising because of our weather. Yes. And the topics. So malaria is one of our major issues that we deal with. But again, it's just a story for me, and I think we can always be hopeful that the vaccine will be the final solution to malaria problem in Africa.
Right. Well, you can check page 6 if you would like to read details of that story. Moving on now, Afenifere tackles Buhari over resurgence of terrorism. Plea for forgiveness. The Pan-Yoruba Social Cultural Organization, Afenifere, yesterday expressed serious concerns over the upsurge in terrorism following the completion of the 2023 general elections. We do have here that I want to read to you a statement that was made. Ajayi recalled, the Secretary of National Publicity recalled that the Minister of Interior, Ralph Aregbesola, while speaking in Katsina this month, has said that the federal government will soon be deploying electronic digital technology to ensure 24 hours inch-by-inch surveillance of the 4,500-kilometer border line from the eastern part to the western part, including the coastline of the country. So this is what he's talking about, the effort of the federal government in minimizing insecurity. So he has said that they will be deploying technology to monitor the roads. The Afenifere spokesman wondered why the government of President Buhari is just thinking of taking such a step when he's about to go. And also they have faulted his statements that for those whom he might have hurt, they should pardon him. He said he would have been much better if the president had listened to the various advices and pleas made to him over the years regarding the friendly, if not retrogressive steps his administration have taken. So just for summary, Afenifere is not pleased with the statement of the president. Yes, they're not pleased by anything that he has said so far. You do remember he made a statement about he's sorry if Nigerians are upset with him and what have you, and also the plan that they're going to deploy technology to for surveillance on the roads and everything, so that they have information, and this can help them tackle terrorism. Where Afenifere is saying that this is a little bit too belated. Why is it you're at the edge of the expiration of your tenure, and that is when you are introducing a system like this one? So Fuhad, do you think is better late than never?
Well, again, I'll repeat what I've said in the morning. I just earlier on the show, we can't wait for a breath of fresh air. See, it's shocking to hear from Minister of Interior just about 30 days to, this government leave in office, that they are just thinking of deploying technology. Of course, the excuse would be that government is a continuum. So whatever they are proposing now would be probably implemented by the next government, or if it's implemented, the next government takes it from there. But again, see, even if we deploy all of this technology in the world, we deploy technology, surveillance technology in our borders, remember that there was a time when this insurgency was so high, kidnapping, banditry. The conversation was about Tucano debt. Oh, the government had imported Tucano debt. Tucano debt was going to solve the problem. Every day we were reading about Tucano debt in the papers. Now we have the Tucano debt. What has happened? Has that solved our problem? Are we even using Tucano debt already? You see, say, even if we deploy all of the best technologies in the world, we get some of the best military equipment in the world to fight insurgency. If there's no willpower by government to resolve that problem and solve the problem once and for all, nothing is going to happen. It's about the willingness to do the right thing that is missing here. I can tell you that we have the best military, we have the best security operatives that can tackle the insurgency we have now. Say, but the willingness, the willpower to do the right thing is what is missing. Look, just as some few days ago, I think 2 or 3 days ago, a monarch that was dethroned after banning a terrorist, a bandit, has now been installed again.
Yes,
the bandit is still at large as we speak. That's a bandit that has been declared as one of the most dangerous in the Northwest, hovering between Zamfara, Kaduna, Niger State, and the rest. Series of cases of kidnapping and killings of other in Nigeria.
And he was still banned.
The guy is still at large. The man that gave him a fancy title has now been returned. I think from 4 girls, some of the girls that the guy kidnapped have been returned 4 out of I think about 14 or 2.
Yeah, 11.
I think about 11. There are still 7. They are still with him.
Yes.
So you have a situation where, like I said, we can deploy all of the best technologies in the world. We can do all of this by Tucano, buy M16, buy all of the best fighter jets in the world. If we don't have a government that is deliberate about fixing the problem, and punishing people, punishing people beyond the sentiment of ethnicity and religion, nothing is going to be resolved as far as banditry, kidnapping, and terrorism is concerned in Nigeria.
Well, page 7 of the Guardian newspaper is where you will find details of that story. Let's go to another headline here. Worries over HND BSc bill as Buhari exits nears. Page 4 is where the story is. Now, the struggle to end the disparity in certificate issued to university graduates and higher national diploma polytechnic graduates in the country has again taken the center stage as the May 29 exit date for President Buhari draws near. The National Assembly had, after attempts in June 2021, passed a bill to end the disparity. The bill was later transmitted to the president for assent. So, Fuhad, here's the thing. Let me just narrate this incident to you. There's always been that controversy of discrimination between those who hold HND and those who have the Bachelor of Science degree. They're saying that it's unfair. Both academic structures represent different things. Polytechnics are meant for, technology. Bachelor of Science is, just meant for what it is. So they feel like the polytechnics are more or less like the practical centers, while the universities are where the theoretical aspect of academics happen. But then some of the reps that are pushing this, the members of the National Assembly that are pushing this bill are saying that why is it that in the labor market, those who have HND are considered lesser than those who have a degree, the bachelor the BSc certificate. They are trying to bridge that gap that two different institutions for two different purposes, they should be treated equally and accepted the same way in the labor market. Do you agree, or do you think that the university is slightly higher than the polytechnic, or you think that they should be treated the same way, the HND and the BSc?
Well, the establishment of polytechnics and what they are supposed to do is very, very clear. It's about technology, really, technical know-how. While, you have situations where the university focus more on theory and what have you. Again, it's just that as a country where something that is supposed to be very simple and straightforward, we just find a way to model it up And basically you want to ask yourself, why is there a disparity
Yeah.
in the two certificates, HND and BSc? When what HND is supposed to do is very clear. These are supposed to be guys who come in and fill the technical gap in our industries and what we call the environment. They are supposed to have more technical knowledge and all of that, because it's not supposed to be more of a technical oriented school. While the university is supposed to be more theories and all of that. You know, and what we have found again is that there are still questions I ask myself. Why do we find some courses that are supposed to be more of theory in the polytechnic? For example, what is a business admin doing in a polytechnic? What is accountancy doing in a polytechnic? And because again, those are the confusion that you find in our system.
Our curriculum is a tad bit confusing, to be honest.
You know, so it's completely confusing, and then you have the labor force that has also created a problem by the disparity they create between the two certificates. So you have situations where people are even so reluctant now to go to the polytechnic.
Yes.
I can tell you that 99% of students you find in the polytechnic are people who did not get admission to university and had no choice. So the essence of even creating polytechnics have been defeated by the disparity and the way we modeled everything else.
You've created that notion. They've created that notion that it's the lesser ones that go to the polytechnic, and that translates into how the labor market perceives them.
Let me tell you something, Sage. Essentially, I've gone to the schools. I've gone to a polytechnic. I've gone to a university. And I can tell you that when I was in the polytechnic, for example, our accounting department, a lot of the guys that were even still studying at OND level have become chartered. They have passed their ICANN exam at OND level. I can tell you that some of the best guys in the media today are HND graduates. As in some in the media industry, that's in our own industry, and the same thing across all other industries too. HND graduates doing far better than even BSc graduates. So it's not even about comparing whether one is lower or not. The reality is that we need to fix our curriculum issues and then remove the disparity between the two certificates, so that technical areas are concentrated on the polytechnic, while we do more theory, in the universities, and then we fix the problem instead of taking this chaos. So it's a needless one, really.
Right. Well, the Guardian newspaper is where you find the story, page 4 of the Guardian. Let's just run through the Nation before we go, as we have less than 2 minutes before the end of today's trends in the papers. For the Nation, the top story: 2,800 Nigerians expected today from Sudan. We will deliver on renewed hope agenda, Tinubu affirms. I'm strong. I'm very strong. There was a rousing welcome for the president-elect. There's a story here: how APC will zone Senate, House top post. Religion voting pattern is key. That is one of the story here. Fuhad, I don't know if you can take 1 minute to just talk about this particular story. And I'm interested because of the statements that some of the factors, according to a party source that says cannot be ignored, is religion and ethnicity, of course. So do you think that even up until this very moment, as much as we do not want that to be our reality, we have to accept that in the selection, especially the leadership selection process, religion, ethnicity, and factors like that will continue to maintain a strong position?
It is our reality, say. Yes, we always feel that we are stronger in our diversity. We're a diverse nation in terms of our ethnicity. We're a diverse nation in terms of our religion. But it's our reality, whether anybody likes it or not. And it was a major point of discussion during the campaign, unfortunately. So there's no way we are going to now throw that aside now in the composition of the 10th Assembly. And one of the major ones that I think talked about is the Muslim ticket of the APC. You can't have a Muslim president elect, a Muslim vice president elect, and then you give the Senate presidency also to a Muslim. But again, politicians would always come up with different excuses when it comes to them assuming power. We now have senators who are of Muslim extraction and northern extraction, so it doesn't matter. It's about competence, it's about experience and capacity to deliver.
Right.
But the reality is that we cannot take our eyes away from this. These are peculiarities that Nigerians face at this time.
Right.
And that to be taken into consideration.
Yes, Fuhad, we actually have to go. That is all we can take for today. We were not able to look through New Telegraph, but then again, most of the stories are quite similar to the stories that we took on the front page of the other papers. 8:40, we will be back for Mainland Focus. Don't go anywhere. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.